What's up, guys? Josh Mosiman here from Motocross Action Magazine, and you're watching This Week in MXA, episode number 39, presented to you by O'Neill Racing. Big shout out to O'Neill and those guys over there for supporting this weekly video series, keeping it pumping out. It's hard to believe we already have 39 episodes. Last week, I was racing the Hangtown National, and that was one of our episodes. This week, we're working on episode 39. Next week will be 40. It's a good little milestone there. So it's been fun doing this video series. Thank you guys for tuning in and watching these videos each week, letting me know in the comments what you guys like and don't like so we can keep pressing forward. So in this video, I'm going to talk a little bit about Hangtown National, what my recovery process was like, answer some of the questions that we got on the YouTube comments from last week's video when I raced Hangtown on a stock KTM 450. Also going to dive into the Star Racing Yamaha team. I got some interview with a few key employees over at Star Racing Yamaha to ask the question, what makes that team and those riders different from the rest, as that team won 3 championships this season and more. So let's dive into it. Starting off with the main topic with the Star Racing Yamaha team, I got to talk to a few key guys over there, asking them the big question. And this team, it's been a very talked about team in 2021. Obviously the 250 team has been strong for years and years now. I got some really cool interviews from the Washougal National. Now I know this is a little bit old news, it's from a while back, but these are some unseen interviews with guys who definitely aren't in front of the camera very often. And I got the interviews but didn't use them a couple weeks ago. I figured now is a good time to bust these interviews out and give these guys who are usually behind the scenes some time in the limelight, and also hear and pick their brains on what they think makes the Star Racing Yamaha team different. Also talk a little bit about air forks with the suspension guys for the 250 and 450 side from Star Racing Yamaha. First interview on the list, Alex Campbell, Dylan Ferrandis' mechanic, the guy who spent a lot of time with Dylan at the practice tracks and at the race tracks. When he was training in California, Alex Campbell was at the track with him for long hours. I've been at Paula, been at Glen Helen, and seen him many times being at the track much later than the rest of the Star Racing Yamaha team. Even when the rest of the riders are being pulled off because the track's closing down, he's still putting in laps. So I had to ask Alex a couple questions about Dylan Ferrandis and what he thinks about his mentality and what sets him apart from the rest of the riders. Alex Campbell, what's it like being his mechanic? Because widely known that he's out the track late, he's on a different program than the Swanepoel guys. What's it like working with Dylan Ferrandis?
It's definitely different than the rest of the team, but the whole team works together pretty well. And then, but Dylan as a person, he expects a lot. He's only here for one reason, and that's to win. So he's can be difficult to work with at times, but it's for the greater good, really. It's hard to be mad at somebody who just wants to do good all the time.
Totally.
So, I give him credit because he's got a lot of heart and he really wants to do it, but at the same time, sometimes it's 4 o'clock and we're still riding, and I'm just like, man, I really just want to prep my bike and be done for the day. But yeah, as everybody can see, it pays off.
I also got to talk to suspension technician, the Australian Ricky Gilmore for Yamaha 450 team. He's in charge of Christian Craig, Dylan Ferrandis, and Aaron Plessinger this year for 2021. He manages the suspension that they run and is in charge of making sure it runs right. And it was really interesting. What I learned in this interview is that Dylan Ferrandis runs a completely different suspension setup than Christian Craig and Aaron Plessinger do. So let's dive into this interview and hear from Ricky.
It's stressful, and today was stressful, but it's rewarding when things go well. But having this many riders on the team, it can be just trying to stay afloat sometimes. But like I said, it is rewarding when things go good, but yeah, stressful when we're struggling to get settings. The first moto, Dylan was not too happy with the setup, and then just a few little changes, and then he was really happy the second setup. So it's this fine line of oh man, have I got it? Have I got it?
Yeah.
So
how big of a change was it? I mean, really minor?
Just a mil of fork height and some clickers, but we were a little off in practice 1, so we changed to the setup in practice 2, and then he qualified on pole, so we're like, okay, we're good. And then the race came around and it was off, so we went back to the original setup, yeah, what we tested during the week.
Isn't that funny?
Yeah, and he was ripping during the week, so I should have just stuck with that. But yeah. When we're not doing big stuff like shims and that, race days, if we're doing that, it's a disaster.
Yeah.
So, but race day, we're just trying to fine tune balance. We get here, we come from Millville, and it's all just balance, especially with these top guys. Hey, just a little bit of balance, and then they're comfortable to just be able to ride and not have to think about the bike. And it's fun because everybody gets along really good, so it's a good dynamic amongst the team and the mechanics too. mechanics, like I was saying, you like interview those guys, and you said you already have, because they're like the heroes of the team. You know, they're during the week in Florida doing all the practice, and then they're here, and then they're the ones calling me during the week too, saying, hey, this is happening, this happened, just be ready for it. So they're always keeping me a step ahead for what's going to pop up. So I'm from Brisbane on the East Coast, and I moved here in the end of '08 with Dan Reardon, and I was like just like practice bike guy, kind of man friend, you know, whatever you guys call man friend. So, and then just went from there and got in working with the teams. But the biggest thing was when Dan brought me over and gave me a chance, you know, and then was able to meet a lot of people on Geico, and then like Ziggy and all those guys were really good to me. So started helping with Star October last year. Yeah, Dylan's actually the only one on a full air fork, and then the other guys are on something a little bit different. I can't really say too much about that right now, but they're on something a little different, and then so it's hard checking because things are like different systems, and then the shock, we also have different systems with the shock for different riders, so each guy has a different system and a different setup. So the good thing is if there's a trend going with one, you can try and apply it to another, but because it's a different system, you can't just cross over the exact same setting. So it's a lot of variables going on, but I got a really good team back at KYB in California with John Yamada, and then like the engineers in Japan. Like they're always like giving me the latest thing, so making it like a lot easier for me.
That's super cool. Thanks, Ricky.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. I also got a quick interview with Drew Hopkins. He's the 250 suspension technician for the Star Racing Yamaha team. He's been with the team for a while now. I saw him talking to Jeremy Martin after the first moto at the Washougal National, and Jeremy was giving him specific advice on what to change for the bike for the second moto. So if you remember a few weeks back, first moto at Washougal, Jeremy Martin got third. Second moto, he turned it around and he won it pretty convincingly. So I got to talk to Drew a little bit about air forks and about Jeremy and his performance in that moto in this interview here. I saw you and Jeremy talking in between after the first moto, and he was giving you very specific instructions on how the bike was feeling. You went out and won the second moto. What's that like for you being a suspension guy, and how big of a change do you guys make?
Honestly, it feels really good. J-Mart's one of the few guys I've had that, like, I don't know, you can see how much love he puts into this and how much thought he cares about how his bike's set up. So as my job, I like to do that too. So it does feel good, and we really didn't make a big change. He's pretty finicky with what he knows and feels, so it makes my job easier, but
nice.
I mean, it feels good for sure.
That's awesome. Like, why would you run Air Force when everybody hates him, right?
Yeah, I don't know. The Air Force do seem to have a bad stigma around them. I'm really not sure why. Everything we do has been with Air Force. I mean, if you win, why would you switch?
Totally.
We got some knowledge with them. KYB builds a great fork, so we'll keep running it.
Another Star Racing team member that the Yamaha guys were really poking and prodding at me to go interview was Steve Rounds. Now, Steve has been around the motorcycle industry for a long time, working for Yamaha for 25 years. However, 23 of those years were under the road racing side, where the bikes are a lot more high-tech. They're going a lot faster, but they're not hitting all the bumps and jumps that we're hitting in motocross. He's only been on the motocross side for Yamaha for the last 2 years. 1 year, 2020, when it was factory Yamaha, and then 2021 when the 450 effort moved over to Star Racing. So I got to ask him about kind of the difference between the two teams and what's changed for 2021 for Yamaha.
I look at like it's a transmission that all the gears are syncing now. It's like a perfect mesh of guys, riders, equipment. Star brought in a different element. They look at things a lot differently. They brought a lot of 250 experience, which we're able to apply to the 450. The riders had it was like a big uplifting breath of fresh air, I think, for everybody involved. No particular reason. Getting all the mechanics and all the personnel together and getting a team like this is pretty awesome, to be able to all work. Everybody watches each other's backs and no one's fighting anybody, and it's just really, really positive. I basically support the mechanics. Like I said, at the shop I do any task is required. I can work on the bikes, I can drive the semi. I got a large toolbox of skills that I'm able to do.
That's awesome.
It's a little different on motocross. I found that the mechanics are very individualized with the rider and the bike. So I call it holding the light sometimes. I hold stuff and I prepare parts. On build days I'm here all day, and that's my busy day. I do a lot of parts cleaning, a lot of organizing in the truck, parts ordering, making sure we have everything on hand. I prepare all the parts before they get shipped. I ship all the engines out, receive all the engines back in. It's a pretty big laundry list of stuff. I'm not in the limelight per se anymore like I used to be, which is fine. I did it long enough. I was really successful. I try to shed some light to these guys. I'm a little bit older than them. I've seen a lot. I've won a lot of races, and I understand what it takes to do that. And I think I'm an asset to them just from that standpoint of calming things down and looking at it from a different angle.
All right, so switching gears a little bit, it's been about a week and a half since I raced the Hangtown National. It was my first time racing a national in a little over 3 years, and been an MXA test rider. Yes, I get to ride a lot, and I get to race a lot too. I get to do some cool events, and I still feel like I can go fast, and I explain all of this in the video, but definitely haven't been training for a national, so it was a big suffer fest for me. If you guys haven't seen that video, make sure to go check it out. It's a funny one where I'm pretty open and honest about how much of a struggle it was for me to race Hangtown, but it was still really fun as well. Had a great time. I did it on a stock KTM 450, and I had a few questions that people were asking me in the comments on the YouTube video. I figured here was a good place to answer some of those questions and fill you guys in on how it was for me after the race, once the video cameras were off and I was still recovering. Talking about how I felt after the race, well, cameras were off. We packed up and headed out of there pretty quickly, and I was not in a good place. My stomach was completely upside down. I didn't eat very much the whole day. I don't know if I documented it exactly in the video, but I had a small breakfast, didn't really eat much in between qualifying rounds, and then before the motos, I had about 3 hours to kill. Just had to check some spokes, tire pressure, air pressure in the forks, and a few little things, put an air filter in the bike before the first moto, but other than that, I was kind of hanging out. So I went over to my brother's rig, the Gas Twirly Designs rig, and Will Hahn was there cooking some food. He gave me a smoothie to drink between the motos. That was actually really good, and I was able to drink that. But he also gave me some chicken and rice, and that's what I was really looking for, was something easy to eat in between the motos. I couldn't even get the chicken and rice down. I was so nervous about the race that I was struggling to eat. So after the races were over, with barely any calories in my body and just being completely depleted from 2 long motos, I felt like I was gonna throw up every 10 minutes until I went to sleep that night. Like, there was no real cure in it. Yeah, I ate dinner, but it wasn't very much. And like, I would feel okay, and then like 10 minutes later, I'd be like, oh man, I'm not feeling good. And so that was my experience after the Hangtown National, and it was a rough one, but it was fun. Next, somebody had the idea of racing next year's Nationals in 2022 on different brands. So doing a different brand of motorcycle at each race and racing them all bone stock. I gotta hand it to this guy, whoever made this comment. It was a great idea. I had this idea last year, actually, racing Kawasaki one weekend, a Suzuki one weekend, a Yamaha one weekend, KTM the next weekend, Husky, Gas, Honda. And I think it'd be a really fun and really great thing to try. It would definitely be really hard to do and pretty taxing on our resources. This bike that we used for this one was our MXA test bike. It's the same bike that we use in our shootouts and for all of our tests in the magazine and on the website. So it'd be kind of tough to do one of every bike, but we could definitely pull it together, I'm sure, if we tried hard enough. So it's a fun idea. I don't know if I'll be able to do it, but it's a good idea. Answering the question for how much it costs to race an AMA Pro National, that is a big budget. It comes in at $350 to get a pro license, and I only had it for one race, so that adds on a lot of extra expenses for me. $250 to enter a race, but for a late fee for somebody signing up only a couple days before the race, that's $300. Also had to get a mechanics pass for my wife. That was $62, and she needed an AMA membership to be a mechanic, which we paid the one-day membership fee, so that was $20. So that put us over $730 as in just fees and licenses and passes and everything for me and my wife to go race a pro national. Also got to jump into some industry news about who's going where for next year. Malcolm Stewart was signed with the Rockstar Husqvarna team. That's super exciting news. I expected him to race at Hangtown because we saw all the social media videos leading up with kind of teasing their new rider. Instead of him racing at Hangtown and filling in for Dean Wilson, Jason Anderson, and Zach Osborne, who all missed the last few rounds. Dean raced the first few rounds, but the other guys missed basically the whole season. I expected to see Malcolm Stewart on the line at Hangtown. I thought it would have been really cool and a great idea for Husky to get a lot of extra exposure leading into their new rider who's going to race Supercross and Motocross for the next 2 years. Sadly, he didn't race it, but still really cool to see Malcolm found a good home for 2022. Justin Brayton, he moved over from the Muck Off Honda team to the MCR Moto Concepts Honda team, back to the team that he won the Daytona Supercross on back in 2018, a team that he's done really well with. So exciting to see that he's going to be racing Supercross again next year. Eli Tomac, it's widely known that he's going to be at the Star Racing Yamaha team. Hasn't been made official, but it's a done deal, and we're excited to see what happens there. Also, that leaves a spot open at the Kawasaki team. It's pretty well known that Jason Anderson's going to fill in that spot. Not official yet, but well known. Marvin Muskin, he signed a 1-year deal to do Supercross only with the Red Bull KTM team, but that's not the big kicker. The big kicker is that he announced that KTM's going to have an all-new model for him to race on, and Cooper Webb to race on, and assumably Aaron Plessinger to race on as well. So we expect to see Red Bull KTM with a 3-rider Supercross team and then 2 riders for outdoors. That's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. The all-new model from KTM, I'm super excited to see it. KTM's had the same basic engine and chassis for a long time now, so we expect the factory additions from KTM to be all new. We're really excited about that as well. Other news, Justin Bogle, he's been very vocal that he's not going to be with the Rocky Mountain KTM team. He's looking for a ride in 2022. Cody Schock, he's looking for a ride in 2022. Shane McElrath, he got a ride at the Rocky Mountain KTM team for next year, so that's exciting for my friend Shane. Also heard lots of rumors about Max Anstey going over to the Rocky Mountain KTM team. So the Rocky Mountain KTM team has a new owner. He's from Great Britain, where Max Anstey's from, so it's kind of making a little more sense now that the Rocky Mountain team would have Max under their tent. Also, that team is going to be based in Florida now, training out of the 83 compound, which is also owned by the same guy, is a part owner of the team now. So Ethan Lane, he is an amateur rider in the A class. He's got the Rocky Mountain gear, he's got the Rocky Mountain bikes. It's his father that's actually sponsoring the team and a part owner in the team for 2022. So exciting stuff going on over there. Hoping for the best for that team moving forward. And thank you guys for tuning in to This Week in MXA, episode 39, presented by O'Neill Racing. It's been fun. Thank you guys for watching. If you guys like this video, or if you have anything, any feedback from me, leave it in the comments down here on our YouTube video, and subscribe to our YouTube channel as well, as we got a lot of cool videos coming. We're testing a lot more bikes. I'll give you a little sneak peek. We got some 500s coming up, 500 two-strokes, and we're really excited about that. Also got the new Husky 250 and 450s that we're going to be testing. The Yamaha YZ 250 two-stroke video is coming out soon, so got a lot to look forward to on our YouTube channel. Hit that subscribe button to stay up to date there, and click the thumbnails here for some of our recent videos if you haven't seen them yet.